Oh look, the demo for probably the most anticipated game of 2024 just dropped. And naturally, I dove into the demo in one sitting, which took me around 6 hours. And while I was at it, I thought, why not make a quick video on Metaphor ReFantazio for you guys? So let's take a quick look at what this demo has to offer and what we can expect from the full release. Just as a side note, I've been avoiding any spoilers or extra content, only watching the official trailers so far. And I think I even missed the latest one, so going into this demo was a total blind dive for me. So with that being said, let's jump into the Metaphor ReFantazio demo, a game that might just take Persona mechanics to a whole new genre, or at least give us an incredible new setting to drool over until Persona 6 hits. So, of course, if you're trying to avoid spoilers, feel free to skip this part, but then again, why are you even watching this video? Just saying. Anyway, I won't dive too deep into the actual story or spoil too much, because it's still way too early to judge if it's going to be amazing or a total train wreck. But we can discuss the basic premise and some of the bigger themes the game seems to be tackling at its core. So, we start as a nameless protagonist who's on a secret mission heading to the capital of the Kingdom of Uchronia. Meanwhile, we are treated to a cutscene of an obvious villain-type guy, Louis, who kills the king with plan to usurp the throne. Oh, and plot twist, Louis also murdered the king's heir about 10 years ago, so with the king dead, chaos is bound to unfold, giving our boy Louis the perfect opportunity to claim the throne and become the new overlord. But as the protagonist, we discover the heir, who everyone thought was dead, is actually alive. He's just tucked away in a secret hideout, lying in a coma thanks to a curse Louis hit him with during the failed assassination attempt. So, our mission is to save the cursed prince, who also happens to be our childhood friend. You know, no big deal. And to be honest, the premise gives off some serious Suikoden vibes, with its high fantasy, political intrigue and betrayals. And a little Game of Thrones flair sprinkled in for good measure. And honestly, I'm here for it. So long story short, by the end of the prologue, Louis' throne-snatching plans hit a snag because the dead king pulls a Giga Chad move from beyond the grave. Using his last bit of royal magic, the king sets up a tournament to determine the next ruler. A god-imposed democracy, if you will. Basically, whoever gets the most support from the people will be crowned as the new king. And honestly, I wish we had something like this in real life, not gonna lie. In any case, it's pretty clear that we'll be able to compete in this tournament by helping people, solving issues across different countries, and basically winning the hearts of the masses. It's got that whole win the throne through the goodwill vibe, which honestly fits so well into the Persona-like mechanics of the game. The scale feels global, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm really hyped for that. But now let's talk a bit about the big topics the game tackles, because there's quite a bit to unpack. So the United Kingdom of Uchronia is made up of several smaller kingdoms with about 8 different tribes. These tribes are different races basically that, while humanoid, have distinct features. For example, Clamor have horns, Rusand have pointy ears like elves, Ishkia have 2 sets of cool wings, and so on and so forth. And surprise, they all vehemently hate each other. So yeah, it's pretty much like our world. Oh, and then there are the halflings, who are the mix of 2 different races, and they get hit with extra layer of discrimination, ostracized by literally everyone. And just to spice things up, our protagonist is from the Elder tribe, who are considered to be tainted by the state religion, which is Sanctism, because they inherit some kind of forbidden magic or some forbidden teachings. So yeah, fantasy racism at its finest. And honestly, I think it's a pretty good setup. In a world where this kind of stuff is very much an issue, a fantasy game tackling it head-on gives us the place and space to explore these themes without, getting bogged down by real-world politics. And I mean, when you got the horned people fighting winged people while framing 3-eyed people for it, it's way easier to digest and analyze without getting cancelled as a game studio. And because it's a metaphor. And of course we have the cast of main characters who are ostracized, discriminated, or somehow oppressed, and that probably will drive their storylines further. And I already like most of them. The characters we meet in the prologue are Gallica, Troll, Hulkenberg, Grias, Fabienne, and a couple of others. And I have to say, I do not hate them. More to that, all of the characters we meet in the prologue are pretty likable, and I am more than excited to see how their story will play out. And to be honest, here's the thing that separates this kind of setting from, let's say, Persona. You have much more freedom here when designing storylines and drama. And of course, Persona touches upon some heavy themes in its social links, but there's just so much you can do when working with high school setting in a small town compared to literally the whole fantasy world with different cultures, races, and big boy pants problems. So overall, it is evident that the setting of Metaphor is very promising, so I would give it a 7.5 out of 10 as a preliminary score.
そんな世の中は終わりにしたい。この里のエルダ族だってそうさ。君らは何もしてないし、僕をかくまってくれた。なのに、火まで放たれて。
Alright, I need to confess something. After seeing a couple of trailers, I was convinced that this game was an ARPG. And when I started the demo, that belief got even stronger. The first few minutes throw you into this tutorial desert area, and when I tried attacking enemies, they just attacked me back without a proper battle starting. So yeah, at that point I was gearing up for some real-time button mashing disappointment. Because I'm one of those people who still isn't over Final Fantasy VII Remake ditching turn-based combat for ARPG mechanics. And I'll die on this hill, but Final Fantasy VII should have been turn-based. Okay, sorry, I digress, so back to Metaphor. So the moment we hit our first real battle, I breathed a sigh of relief. The game is 100% turn-based, and it feels so right. It plays just like Persona, and everything falls into place immediately. The menus, button placement, skills, the flow of battle, it's all intuitive and it just clicks. So honestly, it felt like coming right home. There's definitely an ARPG element in Metaphor, but it's more like an extended version of what we saw in Persona 5 or Persona 3, because in Persona you just had to hit an enemy from behind to start a battle with an advantage, right? And in Metaphor, enemies don't actually have tunnel vision, they will spot you pretty quickly and they actually move around a lot, so sneaking up on them isn't as easy as it sounds. But you don't have to, you can engage them head on instead, and here's where it gets interesting. When you start attacking, it doesn't initiate the battle immediately. Instead, your attacks chip away at their defense gauge. And if you manage to deplete it, you get to start the battle with a flashy move, dealing damage and stunning them. Pretty cool. And it definitely got that high risk, high reward vibe, because while you are busy desperately whacking away with your slow ass 3-hit combo, the enemy can hit back. And if they land a blow, boom, they start with an advantage. So it's a nice twist to the Persona mechanics, and while it takes a bit to get used to, it's a solid addition overall. And now onto the actual battles. It's a classic Shin Megami Tensei turn-based, press turn, whatever you call it, ambush enemies, exploit their weaknesses and try to win before they even get a turn kind of thing. Because otherwise you'll get one shot or humiliated by crits. Classic, and I love it. The skill names are a bit different from SMT, but not so different that you won't pick them up quickly. For example, Agi is now Bot and Maragi is Gobot. Weird, but okay. And then there's this one, and I don't even know how do you pronounce that. Is it Psych?
Psych!
Or maybe it's a Cook? I have no idea. But hey, Tarokaja is still Tarokaja, and that's all I really need to know. And next, let's talk about Archetypes, this game's version of Personas. So in Metaphor, Archetypes are legendary heroic figures, each tied to a specific class. For example, the warrior is your typical physical attacker, while the mage has access to most elemental spells early on. The protagonist starts with the seeker archetype, which is an all-around mage support hybrid. And the most interesting thing here is that you can unlock any archetype for any character. And actually another cool thing here, depending on who equips the archetype, it will change color. So for example, Halkenberg's archetypes are mostly red, while protagonist archetypes are like this gray metallic layout, and Stroll's archetypes are like gray and gold. So despite the fact that you can have like 3 archetypes of the same class on all of the characters in your party, they will still look a bit differently. So this is a nice touch, I like it. So overall, this kind of customization lets you mix and match your party to different dungeons and situations. Need more magic, swap in a mage. Need more defense, equip a knight. The possibilities really open up the more classes you are unlocking. More to that, there are synthesis skills. These are stronger dual archetype abilities you can pull off when you have 2 matching archetypes in the same party. They take 2 turns to activate, but they give you access to powerful skills early on. For example, I discovered you can get Mataru Kaja, a party wife attack buff, by pairing Seeker with Warrior. And let me tell you, getting Mataru Kaja when your party is only level 10 is a game changer. But of course, that early in the game, it will kind of like eats your MP in like 2 casts. But yeah, that's another thing. And of course, we can't see this in the demo, but based on the archetype tree, it seems that they also can evolve, usually across 3 tiers. There are some with only 2 tiers and some that branch into 2 different final archetypes at the 3rd tier. So there is a lot of potential for interesting builds and customizations, I think. And lastly, there is an inheritance mechanic, which lets you borrow a skill from another archetype as long as you've unlocked it and slot it into your current one. So for instance, you can have the Seeker equipped on the protagonist and throw in Media from the healer archetype for consistent healing spell. Or get this, the Knight archetype has a passive skill that increases its attack by 10%, and it actually stacks by 10% for every other Knight in your party. So theoretically, you can run a 3-Knight party, inherit some buffs and healing, and also have a 30% damage boost constantly. Pretty cool. So you can see that even in the limited scope of the demo, there are a ton of possibilities, and I can already see party building being a huge discussion point when the game fully drops. And now let's briefly touch on the open world aspect of the game. We only get like 3 days in the demo, and there are just a few things I want to mention here. First off, I gotta say, somehow it gives off Honkai Star Rail vibes. Don't ask me why, it just does. And you can hate me all you want in the comments, but that's the energy I'm picking up from this for some reason. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just for some reason I was like, yeah, that pretty much looks like Honkai Star Rail for some reason. Aside from that, the demo offers the standard Persona-like set of activities. You have a deadline to defeat the next boss, and in the meantime you can do whatever you want. There are quests to tackle, NPCs that can help you level up your royal virtues, the game's version of social stats like wisdom, imagination, courage and stuff like that. And of course, you have followers, this game's social link equivalent. We can't really level social links in the demo, there are just a few rank ups that are story driven, but you don't have access to leveling up followers when you have the free roam. But from what I can see, when you level up followers, they mainly do the same thing as Confidence in Persona 5, they give you additional skills that you can use in the battle, they also open up new archetypes. So yeah, pretty standard stuff. And while I was experiencing those 3 days of free roam in the demo, I was quick enough to get my wisdom to level 2 by completing a couple of quests, and this led me to unlocking a side dungeon on day 3. And let me tell you, this dungeon just got my ass handed back to me. The goblins there were like level 16, while my party was like level 10. So I tried to grind it out, I tried using press turn to get the advantages, but after like 3 battles, I had burned through all my mana and I had to retreat. And I'm not even talking about 15 or 20 instances where the goblins just 1 or 2 shot me, the whole party. But one of the cool mechanics that I discovered in that dungeon is that goblins will actually get a attack boost, like a rage mode, if they see a healer or mage in your party. So this kind of makes you experiment more with your party setup, make use of that inheritance mechanic. So you have to get like a couple of knights, like a seeker, a knight and a warrior, inherit healing skills so you don't get goblins enraged, because if they are enraged they basically one-shot the whole party. So that's a pretty cool thing, and I imagine the more you progress through the game, there will be different dungeons with different scenarios like this, or even bosses that will have special skills or special buffs depending on your party setup, so you have to adjust on the go. So I was playing on hard difficulty, and there was also a difficulty called Regicide, but it was locked. It was written that this game has like a high risk, high reward type of thing, so most probably, if it's not like the lunatic difficulty in Persona 5 when it's actually a bit easier than the hard mode, if it's really hard but you get like more stuff, or maybe you can unlock more stuff in that difficulty, this is going to be the difficulty I will probably be playing when the game releases. So overall, I would give the gameplay a preliminary 7 out of 10, but I'm sure it will change after the full release to a bigger number. There's just not many exclusively new mechanics to discuss for now. Okay, it's not really a separate section, I just like the battle theme in the game, so go listen to it as well. Because the guy in that melody, he spits straight facts, just listen to this. So initially I was going to start this section with "This is Persona in a different setting, yay!" But honestly, that's not the vibe I got from playing this demo. Despite having some similar mechanics, it doesn't feel like Persona clone at all. It's shaping up to be a unique and interesting game that will offer way more than just being a filler between Persona 5 and Persona 6. Because let's be real, this title goes to Persona 3 Reload. So yeah. Huge thanks to Atlas for those amazing 6 hours I definitely didn't spend playing instead of working, and thank you guys for watching this video. This is my first attempt at a game review of sorts, so I'm not sure if it's okay or just meh. So let me know in the comments, bombard me with your criticism, I'm all here for it. Seriously, I'd love to hear your suggestions. Oh, and I'll definitely be doing Platinum Trophy for Metaphor, so subscribe if you want to watch me suffer through that as well. And check out my other videos, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!